Live from Waterford and Dungarvan, this is Waterford at 1 News.
Good afternoon, I'm Sinead Aherne. Today's top stories: the number of confirmed cases of coronavirus in Waterford remains stable. A Waterford TD's criticised the government's failure to carry out a cost-benefit analysis on the deal with private hospitals. The opening of a new nursing home in Waterford is creating 70 jobs. And in sport, the search is on for Waterford's greatest sporting hero. There was no change in the number of coronavirus patients at University Hospital Waterford last night. There was just one confirmed case on site. At 8 o'clock, a further 5 patients were awaiting the results of COVID-19 testing. A Waterford TD has told the Secretary-General of the Department of Health that as a former car salesman, he would have loved to see him coming through the door. David Culnan made the comments at the Dáil's COVID committee as he criticised the department's failure to carry out a cost-benefit analysis on the deal with private hospitals. The Sinn Féin TD says on many occasions prior to COVID, the need for more hospital beds was pointed out.
The very fact that you had to go to private hospitals is testimony of the fact that we didn't have capacity in the public system. What I'm saying is, if you're negotiating a deal and you're coming up with a price, because I worked in the car sales industry at one point, and I can tell you, I would love to see people like you coming through the door when I was selling a used, or if I was selling a used car, because what I'm trying to establish from you is, in negotiating that price, surely you would have had an estimated cost of what a bed costs in a public hospital as opposed to what the cost was going to be in terms of this deal for private hospitals.
Deputy Culnan says he knows what's transparent, what should be accountable and what's value for money.
That a cost-benefit analysis is important. Having the fundamentals of a deal properly examined is important, and it doesn't strike me on this occasion that this happened. Now, you've given what you see as logical reasons why not, but the fact is this deal cost us €300 million. You said that you anticipated that you would use full capacity. You used less than half the capacity.
The opening of a new nursing home in Waterford is creating 70 jobs. The former Athenaeum House Hotel and Ferrybank has been transformed into a 64-bed nursing home by Signacare. The group also has facilities in Wexford and Carlow. Margaret Ann Walsh, co-founder and CEO of Signacare, says they're delighted to be opening up in Waterford.
Signacare was founded by my husband John and I, and we very much work hand in hand in the sense of setting up and building the nursing home. In Waterford, the centre is in Ferrybank on the site of the old Athenaeum Hotel. So it's a beautiful, beautiful location, and the centre really has transformed to a beautiful centre. It is a 64-bedded nursing home, and it very much we focused on a luxury environment and surroundings, and we really focus on living well and looking at giving people options and to very much continue living when they require additional supports, and that's very much part of our ethos in Signacare.
The leaders of Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil and the Greens will meet today as efforts to form a government continue. Leo Varadkar said it's likely to be next week before any programme for government can be agreed. Our political correspondent Sean Defoe reports.
The chances of reaching an agreement on a programme for government this week are all but gone, despite the negotiating teams finalising the text of some policies last night. They've left the trickiest items for last, however, and today Leo Varadkar, Micheál Martin and Eamon Ryan will meet to discuss how much progress has been made. Varadkar told his TDs last night it's likely to be next week before a programme can be agreed, if it can be agreed, and some came away from that meeting feeling downbeat about the chance of a deal getting done at all. It's now boiled down to the most fundamental issues of party identity, with central disputes being over agriculture, climate change, housing provision and the pension age, topics where the parties have quite different views. They now have the difficulty of trying to reach a compromise that each party can sell to its members as a win, but time is getting tight. Criminal justice legislation needs to be renewed by the end of June, something that requires a new government, and given it'll take 2 weeks for party membership to vote on any deal, next week is emerging as a hard deadline for those talks. Sean Defoe, Leinster House.
Waterford Oireachtas representatives will have to be aggressive in ensuring the city and county get priority treatment by any new government. That's according to Fianna Fáil councillor Eddie Mulligan, who says the South East region was falling behind before the pandemic and will need extra resources.
We need to bring the higher paid jobs to Waterford. We need the North Quays development to go along. We need the 3,000 plus information communication technology type jobs over there within the city centre. We have to be aggressive ensuring we maintain the investment coming towards Waterford, and the Waterford people have elected the 4 TDs are there, and they cannot relent over the next 5 years. Before they were elected, Waterford was in a bad place. We had the highest levels of unemployment in the country. There was very little support, very little investment came to Waterford. That has to completely change.
A board member at Waterford Hospice says their revenue was down by €100,000 at the end of April. They're continuing to provide vital home care services to people with terminal illnesses. Hospice Sunflower Days were due to take place on Friday and Saturday. However, the on-street collections were cancelled due to the pandemic. They're appealing to people to make a donation to togetherforhospice.ie. Stephanie Aherne says COVID's having a huge impact.
At the end of April, we were down in revenue by €100,000 because of all the events that had been cancelled, all the fundraising that didn't take place. And I always remind people again, it takes us $500,000 every year of voluntary contributions to run the service. There's an extra $250,000 that comes from the HSE. That $500,000 breaks down to $10,000 a week. And already at the end of April, we were down $100,000.
She hopes that people will support them.
So it's vital that the message that gets out there to people, don't forget about us during lockdown. Continue to support hospice. Do it online. If you're not confident online, you can always send a cheque in the post to the hospice care of University Hospital Waterford. If you have an old T-shirt with sunflowers on it from a previous event, wear it. Wear your sunflower badge that you got last year, because we have no merchandise going out this year, and people will just remember that these 2 days are the days when we raise vital funds for our service.
The US President is urging police to get tough following an 8 nights of protests against the death of George Floyd. Donald Trump's comments come after the mother of Mr Floyd's child has called for justice. Noel Colbert reports.
As demonstrations continued into their 8th night last night, the mother of George Floyd's child spoke to the press. Roxy Washington fought back tears while holding their 6-year-old daughter.
She needs her dad. She does not have that anymore.
She now wants all 4 police officers involved in Mr Floyd's death to pay for it. Last night, the public anger showed no signs of abiding, with a series of peaceful protests across the US. However, some have defied nighttime curfews, which has led to police in New York making numerous arrests.
You have refused to leave the roadway. You will be placed under arrest on the charge of disorderly conduct.
US President Donald Trump is now calling for law and order and says the National Guard is ready to step in. Meanwhile, Limerick man Michael Dowling is President and Chief Executive of Northwell Health, a major health company in New York. He says the President's words have had an impact on what's happening on the streets.
You have a President who, in my view, gives oxygen to hate.
Here, a Black Lives Matter demonstration scheduled to take place outside the US Embassy in Dublin this Monday has been cancelled following consultation between organisers and the Gardaí.
A protest calling for an All-Ireland National Health Service took place in Waterford City this morning. The event, organised by the Waterford Council of Trade Unions, is part of a national campaign. Councillor Joe Kelly says they want to have a health service that we can all be proud of.
Where we retain the doctors and nurses that we've currently hired, that the moratorium on health personnel being hired has been implemented for years by successive governments, that's ended as it is at the moment, and that now is not the time to go back the way. We must continue from where we are now to move forward with a properly funded health service that really serves the purposes of everyone, and not just those who can pay or afford to pay, such as the private system which we currently have at the moment.
WLR Sport, Ireland's local station of the year.
The search is on for Waterford's greatest sporting hero. An expert panel have compiled the final list of 25 names. Today we look at 2-time Camogie All-Star Beth Carton. The 22-year-old De La Salle player holds the Under-16B, Minor B and Intermediate All-Ireland medals. She became the first ever Waterford player to be awarded an All-Star in 2018 and again in 2019 after finishing as the top scorer in the 2019 Liberty Insurance Senior Championship. She spoke to Damien Tiernan on Daisha today.
It's absolutely crazy to see the people that are on the list, and as you said, I'm only 22, so look, absolutely honoured to be there, but very shocked as well.
Throughout the month, We Together with Flavins are asking you to vote for your favourite, and the overall winner will be announced on June 26th on Daisha Today here on WLR. You can only vote once. See WLRFM.com or text HERO and your nominee to 083 3333 975. In horse racing, Aidan O'Brien will send 4 colts over to Newmarket for Saturday's 2,000 guineas. It's a race that the Irish trainer has won for the last 3 years. Odds-on favourite Pinnaturbo will face 14 rivals for the first classic of the UK flat season, which will be held behind closed doors. In soccer, Aston Villa captain Jack Grealish says he was deeply embarrassed after being caught breaking lockdown. The midfielder was pictured at the scene of an accident in which a Range Rover crashed into two parked cars. Grealish later apologised and donated money to the NHS and says he now wants to draw a line under the incident.
I tried to make amends straight away by obviously coming out and doing a public apology. I didn't want to hide behind a club statement. But obviously, like I said, it's something that I don't look back on with pride. But I move on, and like I said, we all make mistakes.
And Amazon Prime has announced it'll make all 4 of their remaining Premier League matches this season free to air. It means 33 of the 92 top flight games shared between Sky Sports, BT Sport, Amazon and the BBC can be viewed without a subscription. The Premier League is set to restart on the 17th of June. WLOR asking you to stay at home.